And our special guest today is Mr. Roy Clay. Mr. Clay has an extensive background where he was the city council person and also the vice mayor of the city of Palo Alto, California. And what I have heard about you and looked on the internet and discovered about you, that you have been making things happen from the very beginning as it relates to technology. Reverend McKnight and I have the privilege of working with you today to let people know of the history makers. We just recently did a show called
African American First. Those who were first in various fields and science. Our pioneers in medicine, education, politics.
So, Mr. Clay, were you a pioneer?
I think, in a way, not the first in many things, but I was early to enter several areas. Some of us first, and some I followed others. I always followed what my mother told me, and that was to learn how to do something well. I remember an incident where I was stopped by the police because of in an area that black folks didn't normally visit. And I was asked why I was there. And I was there because I was working. I was doing gardening work because that's how I made money when I was a teenager. And I was ordered into the police's car, and he drove me. I didn't know where he was going, where he was taking me.
Yes.
But he took me back to the town where I was reared. Asked me out of the car, and I got out. And he said to me, "Don't ever let me catch you here again." And I walked away, really angry, but also somewhat fearful because I didn't know what the policeman would do. And I told my mother what had just happened. And she said to me, "You're gonna encounter racism for the rest of your life. But don't ever let that be a reason why you don't succeed. Right? Do as well as you can do at whatever you do, and that'll cause you to be successful."
Mr. Clay, then with that as the opening to your experiences, and then your mother and her indicating that you should not let that keep you from being the very best that you could be. Did you find that you had to go over that again in your life just repeatedly, or was that over?
Well, no, it continues.
It continues?
Yeah.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, and that is, I learned that wherever I went, I had to be as good as I could be. In fact, I was taught to believe that I had to be better to be considered equal.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I went to my first college integrated experience was at St. Louis University. And I thought I could be as good as anybody at anything.
Yes.
Fortunately, that was instilled in me as a child. But when I arrived at St. Louis University, they wondered how I got there.
Yes.
Many people didn't think I was educable.
Oh, really?
But I worked through to get a degree in mathematics. And on my first job, and I wanted to work in the private sector. I went to location McDonnell Aircraft. It's McDonnell Douglas now. Yeah. And I sent my resume, and it showed that I was from St. Louis University. They assumed that I was white.
Yes.
But when I arrived at McDonnell, they said to me, "Mr. Craig, we're very sorry. We have no jobs for professional Negroes.
Professional Negroes.
We have no jobs. Whatever a professional Negro is,
Yes.
we have no jobs for that." And I walked away very, very disappointed, as you might expect.
Yes, yes.
But I taught school after that. And I was lucky because in the area where I taught school, that's where I met my wife.
Yes.
I would not have if I'd been hired by McDonald to begin with.
Yes.
And I did go back to McDonald. I was referred by a young man who was a brother of a member of the Harlem Globetrotters,
Yes.
Sam Wheeler's brother. Enticed me to go back to McDonald because they had openings, and they hired me, and that's where I learned computers
You learned computers at McDonald's?
at McDonald, right? So there was no computer science discipline. Okay?
What year was that?
That was in 1956.
56.
Okay. And let's see, 1956, January 56. Let's see, Bill Gates
Yes.
was born October 1955.
1955.
So he was 3 months old
3 months old. Bill Gates.
when I got it.
And Steve Jobs wasn't around either.
He wasn't born yet.
Now, Mr. Clay, this actually makes you a first in the field, above and beyond race. Most people knew nothing of computer programming
Correct.
in the 1950s.
That's correct. And the reason is that computers in the 50s were used by various industries, and they were a computer that would have the capability, your desk computer now would be the size of this room with
yes.
air conditioning.
Yes.
And you couldn't buy an IBM computer. They rented the computers. And it's the way the computers came into the domain of households was in the late 60s when at Intel Corporation, a young man developed the microprocessor that caused computers to be miniaturized so that what was at that time the space requirement of this room and with special environmental condition can now be done in my coat pocket.
Yes, yes.
And that young man's name was Robert Noyce, N-O-Y-C-E. And I was asked to meet him because of what he had done. And I worked with Robert Noyce for 6 months or better, determining what we can best do, what he had just developed. And we said we could automate traffic lights, elevators then were operated by individuals,
Yes.
appliances, and we looked at doing all these things, but then I recommended that rather than building any one of these products, just sell the component, sell it to the people who built elevators. And really, that came about so smoothly, going from the elevator operated by the human being to now all elevators are electronically operated. Yeah. Traffic lights are controlled by electronics. And we looked at the various things that could be done. We never considered what might be done in space. We never thought about going into space because just the computer needed to operate in space. The size and the weight could not be sustained.
Yes.
As well, at that time, a computer that you would need to operate something in space really couldn't be done because the computer uptime, that is, a computer at the time could be operated safely and with accuracy with about maybe 6 to 8 hours. Right.
$6
So nothing could be done. We never thought about going to space.
Yes.
But it could not have been done had it not been for the design of the microprocessor. So I was hired by Hewlett Packard Company.
Hewlett Packard.
Yeah, and it's just the strangest way.
Excuse me. When was this you were hired by Hewlett Packard?
In 1965.
All right.
Okay. And that was to develop a computer that would enable the Hewlett Packard instrumentation to access data, acquire data, and to send it back so that you could operate an AKG machine or anything that could be used to acquire data from an individual. That could be brought back to the computer and form what I call a closed loop system. Now, many things happened after that, but I was invited by HP for an interview, and I went to the interview and decided I didn't want the job, and they made an offer to me, and I declined. I declined because I didn't think they knew what they were doing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And they invited me back for another interview, but this time David Packard was there
Really?
to explain to me why he wanted to develop a computer
Okay.
and why he chose to develop it himself rather than to acquire a company to do it. And I was really impressed. The company was very successful. I was doing something, but even though they were not building computers, that they were so successful at what they did that whatever they built, somebody would look at it. Okay? And then I knew that they would be developed with enough cash to survive no matter what we did. And I chose to go to HP
That was in
in 1965.
1965.
Yeah. Now, mind you, David Packard knew what he wanted in the end, but they didn't know how to get there.
Yes.
And then I've said many times, if they knew what would be required to get there, they probably would not have hired me. Because whereas I decided not to go to begin with because I didn't think they knew enough about what they were trying to do. And I thought about being then in any place alone where if I needed help to gain support for a product that I wanted to develop, who would I have to talk with? There was nobody.
Nobody.
But fortunately, David Packard had enough confidence in me to permit me to do anything I wanted to do. Okay? Then he never asked, why you're doing this. I told them what I wanted to do. And my wife knows, my late wife would know, that I would walk 13 hours a day because I knew what I needed to have done. And I did to acquire the resources to do it and people I needed. And I recall I would do interviewing, designing, determining what we needed to do, and just bring the people in. And in fact, one thing I'm very proud of is that I started a college interviewing system for black colleges that Hewlett Packard had never done. And I hired people, I know from Morehouse College.
Really?
And we had an environment which I was very much supportive of and happy that we could do it. That I could bring someone from a black college into Palo Alto with an undergraduate degree, send them to Stanford University and pay for their education while they were going through. Now, that also works extremely well for me. Aside from just bringing people in who could do things, I was able to hire a young man whom I had met at Hewlett Packard Company, who I was able to support through Stanford to get a PhD in engineering, electrical engineering. And I brought him in through my company to work with me. When I started my second company, I brought him in to do design work, and he was a young man who not only was bright enough to do what he could do, but he had a stick-to-itiveness. They would get things done.
Yes.
Well, now, I was able to deliver, but just working and doing whatever I need to do. I hired one young man from Boston to come to Palo Alto, and I told him what I had designed for him to do. He was a young man who did a private flying, and he was killed in an airplane crash in Sacramento. And I didn't have time to recruit them, so I worked at nighttime designing the products that I was wanting to do. And I not only designed it, but I worked at the implementation of it.
Yes.
But it was doing what I needed to do to get the work done that Hewlett Packard needed. Now, David Packard went to the Pentagon as Deputy Secretary of Defense. And an indication of the kind of confidence he had in me, or respect, was that he designated me to be a reference. So I was interviewed. I became part of the vetting process for David Packard becoming Secretary of Defense. And when he went there, I didn't think about what would happen afterwards. I would not have anybody, another David Packard,
Yes.
to do the things, to give me the kind of support that I needed to do the work that I had to do. That fell to Bill Hewlett, who had been president. He had become now CEO and chairman of the board. And I didn't have the rapport with Bill Hewlett that I had with David Packard. And for a while, I decided to leave Hewlett Packard. Now, I'll just go into why I decided to leave. I designed a product that we sold to Holiday Inn's Hotel to do what was called point of sales handling with computers at various locations. And what they told me at Holiday Inn's was that if they bought this product, it couldn't fail. I had to be failed with. And I said, okay, so we tied together some computers operating in parallel and sent it to Holiday Inn in Little Rock, Arkansas. They evaluated it and said they want to buy it. They made an offer for $40,000, which was a lot of money then, but not later on. And Bill Hewlett discovered that I had sold this product to Holiday Inn. He called me the next morning at 10 o'clock and said he had heard about what I sold to Holiday Inn. I said, yes. He said, well, I'm not going to permit you to ship it. We're not going to be in that business. So, and at present, he said, I want you to terminate that project today. At like 10 o'clock in the morning. And by 2 in the afternoon, I not only canceled the order, but I terminated the project. And I'll fast forward. That product became Tandem Computers.
Tandem?
TNDM. That product became
Tandem
Tandem Computers.
Okay.
Fast forward again. It was in 1969, the Bill Hill had made me terminate the project in Canton. In 2001, we bought it back to Compact Computer for $20 billion. 20 billion.
Wow. The same product.
Yeah. And
You receive no credit for that?
no.
And no money?
No. No. I left HP. Well,
How could they have the power to do that?
because they bought it through, first off, when they canceled that product, they had nothing more to do with it.
I mean, how could they instruct you, tell you that you have to cancel it? It was your product.
Well, yes, but I was doing it as an employee at Hewlett Packard Company.
I think we must have him back
Yes.
to complete the story.
Yes.
But what I now can do, when I get on an elevator, I can now hold my head up a little higher. And no matter if I am the only African American in the city, when I get on that elevator, I know there's a black man in the elevator with me.
Okay. That sounds
And
like,
every time
yeah.
I stop at a signal light, I can see your picture now in that signal light. I can hardly wait for us to do a part two. We
Yes.
cannot leave this story
Yes.
unfinished, because I want to hear about how you concluded your relationship with HP, and
Yes.
perhaps greater detail on some of the things you accomplished while you were there. But let me just say, I want to thank you, Mr. Clay, for being here
Thank you, man.
with